gentlemen, welcome back to Podcastjuice. My name is Michael Dean, and of course, this is the podcast on Prince. We've got a special one today. Before I get to that, I got to welcome my partner in crime, Mr. Big Sexy and Sax. Sir, how are you?
You know, I'm doing all right. Keeping the movement, trying to stay positive.
This will be going to be an interesting show. And hear me say this off the top. And I know sometimes on our podcast we can get into talking about racial politics. You dig? When we talk about Prince and we talk about some of the lyrics. And of course, we are black men, so we're not shying away from different topics. And today you might hear a little bit about that, but it's not going to be just coming from me and Big Sexy. We have a very special guest here, somebody that I've been wanting to have on the show for a while, since I first sort of really heard of his name out there. And he has the distinct pleasure of sharing a producer credit with Prince on an album, which you do not really see at all. So we're just going to welcome Mr. Joshua Welton to the show. Joshua, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you guys so much. This is such a pleasure joining you guys. Michael Dean, Big Sexy. I think this is going to be an amazing conversation. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you opening up the door. And I just look forward to today. I really do.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for joining us. Let me say off the top, man, and I'm going to get my fanboyism, and we give accolades to each other all day, which we should. But just a salute to you, sir, because I see you out here. First of all, salute to you, your music production. As a producer, I used to do music as well. And so when I see you doing your thing, I'm like, man, he made it. He's doing his thing. You also have your ministry. You will be moved ministry, which we're going to get into. But I salute that because I would, my assumption, you're a relatively young brother.
Yes.
That's doing something like that on a worldwide level. So salute to that. And then, of course, this new thing that you have started, the Purple Movement, which is, in my mind, you sort of jumping into societal, racial, some politics, tangible sort of asks for people out here in today's world, which is amazing to me. You're not sort of resting on I worked with Prince sort of narrative, which is nothing wrong with that. But the fact that you are out here really doing this, and then the whole thing about it that's impressive to me is that you are a father, you are a husband, like you have kids, you have beautiful wife, Hannah, salute to her.
Thank you.
And you're able to do all this and not sort of like succumb to just the struggles of everyday life of being the head of the household and different things of that nature. So salute to you for that. If I say nothing else.
Thank you so much. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate that because those are many facets that I would say make me. It's pretty much, you summed it all up from marriage, music, ministry, and now this movement. That's 4 M's right there. I like that. But
sure.
Yes, that definitely sums up what I believe the Lord has put us on this earth to do. And I just look forward to seeing how it continues to unfold.
Okay. So let's just go back, man. I would love to hear. And also, let me shout out too. I saw you on the podcast with your brother, the 100. Keeping it 100
podcast. Yeah.
So salute to that brother, man. I watched that actually. I was really good.
And
I watched it because I like to see the dynamic because you guys are actual real brothers and family.
Right,
so it's a whole different sort of relationship that you have as opposed to somebody you didn't know and you're talking to. So I was really kind of peeping out the energy. And I was like, I never knew much about you because we only got to saw little glimpses. But as I was watching that, I was like, oh, this is a real... if I would have met him, this a cool dude right here. This cat is dope. Like I felt where he's coming from. So with that said, where are you from? And just give us a little background on just jump into your childhood up to teenage years, because I'm curious. One, being that you sort of have you're in your anointing right now, right? You actually are a preacher, which is a whole powerful thing to talk about. But where does that come from? Where did that? What's the lineage to get you to that?
All right. Well, I was born in Chicago, and I was raised in Aurora, Illinois. It's for a while, and I believe it still is the second biggest city in Illinois. But That's pretty much where it started in 1989, man. I was born in Chicago and then raised in Aurora, Illinois. I grew up in church. I'm second of six boys, so I have five brothers.
Okay.
And it ranges from, I think my brother's 34, going all the way to 16. And so my parents, they were trying to have a girl after the third child, and they believed. And finally, they stopped having kids at six boys, and the girl that they were looking for came through their children. And the interesting thing about it is that before we were all born, a grandmother spoke about that through my great grandmother spoke to my grandmother, if you follow, and she said that through you would come six kings. And she thought that she was going to have six boys, but she ended up having two girls and a boy, and one of them being my father. And through my father, six boys came. And so very, very interesting. So we as a family, kind of like at family reunions or things of that nature, talk about the six kings. And that's kind of like an inside family thing. And I'm number two. So that's where it all started. Like I said, grew up in church. And from there, everything began to evolve musically, obviously in ministry as well. And so that's kind of like the beginning of it all.
Were you doing music in the church? Were you active member of the church back then?
Definitely an active member of the church. As far as doing music in the church, it's funny because in my teenage years, I didn't really, quote unquote, start in the church. I did church events here and there, but I wasn't necessarily on the praise and worship team until later. But funny story, I was signed at 14 years old to Sony BMG Columbia Records at the time, Sony Urban, and did this TV show on BET called Blowing Up Fatty Coo. So Fatty Coo, I was a part of this group, and it was kind of like making of the band at the time for BET. And we did this thing called Fatty. I was in a group called Fatty Coo, and toured around the country twice with Trey Songz and Chris Brown.
Wow.
But it was all just music outside of the church. But my heart was always in the church. And as a part of my image, I wore a lock on my belt buckle, and it signified lock it up because only my wife would get the combination. Yeah. So it's always had, Christ values in my life and so forth. So very excited about that.
Well, man, so you said you were signed at 14 to Sony.
Yeah.
Did you guys was there an album or a project that actually came out during that?
Yep. House of Fatty Coo was the album. Okay. And it's funny, after the last, 15 years, we haven't really reconnected, but we just reconnected recently. My brother Eddie B, he reached out because he saw what we're doing with the Purple Movement, and he was like, yo, man, however I can be a part of this, man, this is what I'm about. I'm about unity. I'm about really doing something to make a change. And so we ended up reconnecting just privately with the band and just trying to say, how's everybody doing? Because obviously we disbanded in 2005. Everything started in 2004 for me connecting with the group and so forth. But the story kept going.
What was the reason for sort of the disbanding or?
I think it was more so of an internal thing than it was an external thing. It wasn't that we didn't believe in the music or things of that nature, but it was more of an internal managerial disagreement, vision. A house divided against itself can't stand. So I think that's basically what happened. Wow.
Now, were you guys signed as a group, or did you have a solo deal yourself, or?
We were signed as a group, but later, I think it was like after the second album, I was supposed to come out with my own solo album as far as my deal was concerned.
Okay. Oh, so you guys had two albums.
We had one album that came out, but as far as after the second album in the contract is when they were going to start pushing my solo project. If we did a second album and so forth. Yep. And
were you handling production or doing production on the group thing as well?
No, I didn't. I actually came into what they had already established. And so I just sang on the record. And so I didn't write anything. I added my saxophone to it, to different tracks and things like that musically. But as far as writing or producing, that was probably going to be further down the line if we continued.
You say you played sax?
Yeah.
Oh man, okay. Joshua on the sax.
Yeah.
That's what's up. All
Totally.
right. Well, just to stay on that a little bit, I'm curious. Like, so you said you were on the road with Chris Brown and Trey Songz. You know, them brothers, and I know they had huge fans, and those dudes were big. What was your parents? How did they view you being in that world? You know what I mean? Like at a young age.
That's a great question. Yeah. I because of the roots, man, they trusted me at 14 because what happened was, thinking back, that was a huge faith move because I was in the house with 3 other women and, 2 of them were closer to my age. And so there were some strong possibilities of something going real left and affecting the rest of my life. And they trusted me, man. And so I think because of them growing or rooting me deeply in the word and just my relationship with them, because I'm still very close to both of my parents. They're like my friends, also my mentors, and obviously my parents. They trusted me, man. So it was definitely nerve-wracking in general, just because you're 14 years old, moving to New Jersey, and diving into this world and being, in some degree, culture shock to everything from sex, drugs, alcohol. I was exposed to all of it, but yet by the grace of God, man, left untainted.
Wow. Incredible. So you go so after that music experience, are you at this point like heavy into music, whether your solo thing was, were you just like, here's what I want to ask you. You were heavy into music. Were you, this is going to sound crazy. Were you aware of Prince at that time?
Well, yeah, it's so funny. My dad, we called him Joe Jackson. And I love him already. Yes. If I didn't practice, man, he would never disown me as a son, but it might felt like it. You know what I'm saying? So, because obviously he loves really hard and he would never disown me, but that's just what it felt like growing up. If I ain't practice, man, I might as well just leave. But it was just one of those things that he instilled that type of discipline on the inside of me. So he would always tell me, your competition isn't the Ushers or the Neos, or he said, your competition is Michael Jackson, Prince, and James Brown. So that's how he mentally prepared me at a young age. And so at 13 years old, I had like an EP, and I said it on the EP. Prince never heard this, but I said, I don't see, people like Usher and things like my competition. I see them as, my peers. And it sounds so arrogant at 13 years old saying stuff like that. But I said, I see, Michael Jackson and Prince as my competition and also my inspiration, because I want to be like them and learn from them and grow from them because of their excellence, because that's who Usher looks up to. That's how my dad trained my mind. So yes, I was aware of him. And as a matter of fact, true story, when I got signed at 14, it gives me chills. The actual video that got me signed, it was my rendition of Purple Rain of a citywide competition. And instead of a guitar solo, I did a saxophone solo. Wow. And that's what made them be more interested in me, because it added an element to the band of Fatiku that they didn't have before, because they had a pianist, a cellist, and then now a saxophonist, obviously, and rappers and singers to fill the track as well. So I did a Purple Rain rendition on the saxophone at 14 years old that ended up getting me signed. So yes. And that's something.
Wow. Talk about manifestation. Like you sort of spoke that into early on. That's crazy. And you say, did you ever tell Prince that? I did tell him that. And he just, and he kind of smiled, because him and I had a very, and I don't mean this in a weird way, but when you're close to somebody, you say things, but then there's a lot of things you don't say, but there's an understanding. So there was a telepathic relationship we had as well. We just knew and understood certain things and just kept it moving. Gotcha. Now, I know what you're talking about. I think we do that instinctively a lot of times. Where you might see some brother you don't really know, or you can look at you and you already know, like, okay, we got each other. The head nod, you already know. Exactly. Yeah. Man, okay. And the other part I wanted to ask you too, did you say you were born in 1989?
Yes.
Damn. Oh, you're killing me.
You're killing me. But that's what's up. But see, this is what's great about it. I graduated from high school at 88, but
Wow.
See, this is why I love, because you can learn from anybody. Like I'm sitting here soaking up game, and I've been watching you. So this is great. You know, when you see younger cats that have that energy, that have, you know, something to bring to the table. So this is dope. What I was going to ask you in terms of, and I'm going to jump ahead slightly a little bit, but I was curious.
That's all right.
Because back in the day, I'm thinking about my parents, Prince would be the last thing, you know, my mom was like, Prince? Oh, hell no, you ain't listening. You know, that's how, and that was back in the day. You know, obviously people change and things happen, but was there any hesitation or questions when you guys got the opportunity to, you know, hey, there's an opportunity with Prince for us? Did your family, was there any sort of questions or things of that nature?
Man, shout out to Michael Dean in this show right now. Hilarious. Your questions are just, I appreciate the questions you're asking. So yes, there were some reservations because, you know, of my, like I said, my Christ values, kingdom values. I just got married. Not even 9 months into my marriage, did Prince actually reach out when he discovered Hannah. And so because of his past and some of the things that he may have done that I wouldn't necessarily put on my, you know, profile picture or page, but obviously respect and just, hey, you do your thing. It wasn't like a judging thing. It just not my cup of tea kind of thing. And it ended up not obviously being his cup of tea because of him changing over the years. But I literally, this is a beautiful story. I stayed at the Country Inn Hotel, which was just around the corner from Paisley Park. And I got on my knees and I said, Father, we were down there in Georgia going to Dr. Dollar's church, World Changers Church. Shout out to them, World Changers Church down there. And I was close, or still am close with Anthony. And down there in the youth, he's a youth pastor of the ministry down there. And I got counsel. I was praying and I was like, man, this is, I don't know. Because I was not by any means going to allow a wedge in between my wife and I. We had just gotten married and we went through everything you could probably think of that you probably wouldn't think we went through in that 9 months, from having to move 5 times within the first 9 months of our marriage, getting our house broken into, our car broken into, our car shutting down, like, and all types of bullets and cops and craziness that we had to experience, not because we were in the wrong, but we just felt like we were a target down there in Georgia at the time. But, and then Prince pops up. I'm like, this is not going to separate us. So I got on my knees and I prayed, and check this out. I said, Father, if he tries to separate us, I said, we can't do it. So I get to Paisley Park and we're sitting down. It's Prince, Hannah, Andy Allo, and myself. And we're sitting in the media room and he's like, and it used to be the MPG Music Club room. He goes, as you can see, there's a lot of room here. You guys are more than welcome to stay here. And then he said, because I can't separate you two. When he said that, and my exact prayer was, Father, in my prayer closet. When I mean by that, I wasn't in an actual closet, but just by myself, I said, if he tries to separate us, we just can't do it. And he says, I can't separate you two. He said, you guys are married. You guys are one. You know, I want to honor that. And when he said that, I knew right then and there that this was a godly, divine connection, that we were supposed to stay. So there you have it, man. I just went by faith.
Wow. The fact that he said that, it really a judge of his character to understand it's a package. You can't take her. You got to take both of them. Wow. Okay. That's awesome, man. And you guys had just, newlyweds at that time.
Yes.
Right. Wow. And now you guys have 3 children.
Yes, we have 3 children.
What's the ages?
Our daughter Azaria, she's about to be 4 in just let me see, just a few days. July 7th is her birthday, and then my son, June 7th, Prince's birthday. He was born. Sovereign Prince, we call is his name. And then our third is Genesis Atara, and she was just born May 14th. So we got a new baby, a new one. So we got
saw that online.
3 under 4.
I was gonna say 4 3-year-old is a full-time job unto it themselves.
Yes.
So, I mean,
But she actually is such a helper. It's so funny
Really?
because,
Okay.
yes, her name actually means help by God, and it's not by happenstance. She's such an intelligent helper. You know, if Genesis starts crying, she tries to shh. You know what I mean? And she's ready to help out with Sovereign as well. So I mean,
Nice.
we definitely, by the grace of God, man, our kids, I keep speaking it because I believe it and I want to see even more of it. But they're graced to be a part of this life that we live, man.
Awesome, man. Well, man, that's the blessings to you. You guys trying to have
Thank
more
you.
kids?
Well, as of right now, Lord willing, no. But like I said, Lord willing, it's up to Him, man. I just say,
feel
hey,
you.
if you feel like we need to have another one, you know our lives better in the future than we do. So let's just go by what you say.
I feel you. I feel you on that. We're going to again, shout out to your wife Hannah.
Yes.
When she was discovered when Prince became aware of her talents, and brought her on. So you guys had to move. You decided to move to Minneapolis or to the Minnesota area?
Yeah, so it was kind of a graceful, organic thing because we were out living in the hotel for about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And Prince wanted a jet. I don't know where we were flying to. And he goes, we need to start thinking about living where we work. And we were like, you think? We've been in this hotel for 2 years. I mean, we ain't say it like that, but that's what we were feeling. And so one day we're just wrapping up Artificial Age. And he goes, hey, I have, one of those houses, you can just, he just said, put some furniture in it. And hold on one second. Excuse me. Excuse me. He goes, we have, houses. You can just put some furniture in it. And he mentioned that. And I was like, wow, man, no, thank you so much. And of course, I didn't jump on the opportunity because I wasn't like that. You know what I mean? So I just said, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And so after he said that, he said it on the jet again. So I saw that one of the Prince codes, if you may, was if he says something one time, it's one thing, but if he says it another time, it's something that he's really tried to push. And so he said it again on the plane. And then Hannah started to feel it too. So she was like, yo, babe, either we gonna buy a house. I just don't want to be in this hotel. I want to have my own laundry room. I don't want to tiptoe, because we were starting to become a little bit more known, and it started to get a little bit uncomfortable being so public and living in that area, even though they were so amazing we were family. They let us use their closets to pack stuff when we would travel and everything. We just felt like it was time to have our own space. And so finally I said, hey, you mentioned, that place, because Hannah was pushing me, and I was like, we're thinking about either getting a spot, but I know you mentioned that, so I didn't want to proceed on that if you had something in mind. And he goes, you didn't move in there yet? I said, nah, we're not just going to go up in your spot. And so he said, man, just put some furniture in it. And I was like, whoa. So he let us end up staying in one of his places. And so that's how it kind of happened. It was an organic thing. After a 2-year period, I guess we were initiated enough to stay in one of his places. And so that's how it happened.
Was there, I'm curious, I don't know how many people were around sort of Prince's spirit, camp at that time. How were you guys? Were you guys welcomed with warm arms? As I know, in terms of the band, it was the 3 women. Now, maybe you can answer this, and maybe you don't want to. I don't know. Was there originally an idea of Third Eye Girl that Andy Allo was going to be in that as well?
I think it was more so about her being collaborative in whatever she was doing, because she had already had a project and things of that nature. But as far as her being immediately in the band, I don't know of anything like that. But I do know that as far as her just being a sister and collaborating with the band was definitely a part of it. I know that he was getting a guitar more so in her hand, and obviously she's just thriving on that, and she has an amazing thing, a show called Upload on Amazon right now. She's on fire. She's doing great things. She's such a genuine sister of ours, and so anytime we get a chance to see her, it's always a blessing. But I don't think there's any solidified idea about her actually joining the band, as much as it was her just being a part of any endeavor that we would do.
Gotcha. And just to get into a little bit of the day-to-day type of thing, like, would you guys or Hannah have to sort of show up every day? Was it like, we coming to work, you got to rehearse or whatever it was? What was sort of the day-to-day flow at Paisley
Exactly
for you guys.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly that. We would go in at 2 p.m. to whenever. And that was how it worked, and until until the next day or to whatever. So every week, it started 5 days a week to 6 days to 7 days to 24/7, and
Wow.
then things kind of slowed down. And Prince was like, "Let's start going home when the sun goes down." And so we got more into a regiment. But yeah, there was a non-stopness. First, it was just Third Eye Girl, as Donna, Ida, and Hannah, and then it slowly began to add me in the mix, and so I start playing keys with them. And then every once in a blue, Trevor would come and play the acoustic. But most of all, it was just Third Eye Girl, Prince, and myself on the stage. But I started on the cowbell.
Okay, I kind of remember seeing you, you hitting that bell a few times. And I was like,
Come
"Who's
on.
that brother back there? What's okay?
Yeah.
All right, man." How did it get to? And this is something I've always wanted to ask since Artificial Age came out. How and what was the conversation, if there was one, to sort of like Prince, I do production, or Prince saying, "Yo, what you got?" How did that work? Because that's a unique position. You weren't somebody who came up with him. You had Morris and different people that were sort of around him early on that was collaborating, but you was kind of new into this, and a younger person. How did the conversation start? How did he get comfortable with allowing the reins, sharing the reins?
Well, that again was an organic thing, because in the beginning, I was getting coffees. I was picking up the girls from the Paisley Park, going to the hotel. But in the meantime, Trevor and I, at the end of the night, after they rehearsed the whole time, would basically get serenaded concerts, man. And he would just be so excited about sharing with us what they worked on during the day. And on the side, him and I would just have conversations. Our first conversation when I first met Prince was a 2-hour conversation about Jesus. And so we literally connected on a spiritual level first. And for 9 months, I wouldn't say I was a fly on the wall, because that's just, I was a little bit more involved than a fly on the wall. I was, like I said, a part of just conversation. I just was a support system. That's a better way of saying it, of everything that they had going on. And then one day we go upstairs to the office, and in the conference room, and he goes, "We need a young producer." He basically described me to the point where I couldn't hold back laughter. And that's how it happened. He goes, "We need a young producer who knows how to work the digital aspect to production, who's got their ear to the streets, and he started to just, and I think he did it on purpose because he knew what I could do. But I think that he just didn't say me though. And so I said, and so we start laughing, Hannah and I both, because everybody in the room, it was kind of like the elephant in the room. It was just literally Prince, Third Eye Girl, and then Trevor and myself. Was when he's had this conversation, we need a young producer who knows how to work the digital. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And so from there, Studio D was a really small studio in Paisley, connected to Studio C, where now is the Purple Rain Room, I think it is. But the small room hadn't been occupied. And so I said, "Hey, let me just fix this thing up and just get it to where I can, work on it with my laptop." And so he gave me through Julia, a credit card to go and buy some of the different things that were necessary to get and to fix up the room. And so I fixed up the room, and he comes in the room. Check this out, yo. Imagine me. I'm 22 years old. Okay. And there are 2 other producers from Switzerland that were in Studio B, in the big studio. So there was a team in the other studio, and I'm in this small studio in Studio D. But this Studio D happened to be connected by walls to his small kitchen. And so he goes and walks in the room and say, "May the best producer win." And he gives me files to a Janelle Monáe song and give them files to Janelle Monáe song. And he said, "May the best producers win." And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So this was a competition, but I felt so excited and ready. So I ended up doing this track Queen, I think it was called. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And did a remix to this for Janelle Monáe with Erykah Badu. And Prince was hearing it through the walls. And it started, I didn't know, but people were listening in. They told me afterwards that their ear was to the door and Prince was talking about the funk that was coming out of Studio D. And he won. And man, he gave me the biggest check I had ever received at one time in my life, a $30,000 check for that track. Cash. And said, boom, take that. And he said, obviously I won. And the next stems he gave me was for Fix Your Life Up, a track that he did on the Plectrum Electrum album. And I did some remixes to that. And I did a couple remixes to that. And that's how it's happened. It was an initiation, but it was a 9-month journey throughout that first year of us connecting with him.
Wow, that's some powerful stuff, right? I just got to go back for a second because I think it's important for a lot of young cats that want to get into something, or it don't matter what age you are, you're trying to get into something, but just to listen to what you was humble enough to, first of all, an opportunity opens up for your wife.
Yes.
That's a once in a lifetime type of thing. That's a big deal. You got to be humble enough. First of all, you're strong enough to say, listen, we got to go in this together. I know this is your thing. And hopefully this man will work with that and let her shine. You know, she's shining. You gotta let her do her thing. Then to be like the cat that, oh, can you go get some coffee, or can you go do, you're doing sort of, you know what I mean? Like to be able to no, me get coffee. What that? I'm here with Hannah. I ain't got to. No. Let me go in here and play my position and put in some work. Yeah. So to put in that work, and then it's sort of, like you said, it just kind of organically, we need somebody who can understand the digital and, do the music and whoop-de-woo. And this is Prince saying this. He don't need nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But saying, and then like, to me, it was powerful when you said, he said, here go the credit card, man. Go get the tools you need. You don't worry about how much this costs. Go get what you need. Yeah. Let's get busy. And then he come in there with, that's some Prince shit. Like, excuse me.
No worries.
But that's some Prince to come in there and say, here, take these tracks. It's just some Janelle Monáe with Erykah Badu. But take this. I know. And let me see what y'all can do with it. That's wild. And then you do your thing. You just normally do what you do. And here go that 30K. Take that. You know what I'm saying? You earned this. Let's go. That's wild, man. Like,
well, thank you, man. And let me tell you something. I have to say this because it makes it that much more powerful. Before Hannah got discovered, a brother by the name of Michael Carter, he gave us a prophetic word. He said to me, before we knew about the whole Prince thing, okay? So this is before. He goes, I got a word for y'all. I feel like the Lord wants me to share with you. And he said, there's an opportunity. Check this out. You're going to be like, I'm not lying to you when I say this to you. And this is how powerful God is. But he said this. He said, there's an opportunity coming to Hannah. That's big. A big opportunity coming to Hannah. And he said, God is telling me to tell you, Josh, to support her. And he said, as you support her, God will exalt you in time. He said, but there's a producer that's going to want to work with you, not because you over here talking about I can do this and do that. He said, but because of your conversation. And then he also said, there's a big house for y'all and it's going to be for free too.
Wow.
He said all of that before Prince discovered Hannah. I promise you, I've said this before, but it's so true. And so as I supported her, it was instruction from God, man. He planted this whole thing out. And when I was able to obviously support Hannah in that 9 months, the first thing I actually did with Prince wasn't music. It was choreography because I dance. And so I don't think it's been released, but I did a video choreography for Extra Lovable, and I also did Screwdriver. And so because I was the cowbell guy and all that kind of stuff in the beginning, he gave me $7,000 for that. And he said, tell Josh to go get some soup money. or tell Josh to go get some new suits. This is some suit money for him. And so I would start to, come out, play the cowbell and rock out with some suits, man. So that was, so that was literally the beginning. And so that humility was gassed by that prophetic word that I got, because I knew that in time God was going to do something, but I knew I had to support my wife, and I knew that I just had to be obedient, because that's how my life was in general. It was a faith thing. I didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring, but I knew who held my tomorrow. So I was more excited about that than anything.
Wow. And I heard you, excuse me, when you were talking with your brother on the podcast, and you were saying the thing that sort of kept you working, with Prince and being around wasn't necessarily the skill set per se, but it was your humility and being humble and your character with him. And I was wondering if you could speak on that a little bit too.
Because there were some other name brand producers, if you may, that came through and was basically, Prince told me, trying to shoo me out. And an interviewer, I believe it was either Ebony Magazine or USA or something like that today, was like, hey, out of everybody that you could work with, why Joshua? And Prince responded by saying, because of his relationship with God. He said, you can trust him. And so for me, I and anybody talks to me about, yo, you the only producer to be credited for Prince like this crazy, and I say, bro, it is God. I have to say it's God, being rooted in Christ's values. Are you there?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just heard a fan go out. Okay. Yeah, be rooted in Christ's values, and then also just having a relationship with my parents. I always heard their voices in the back of my head in the midst of, challenging times, as well as Pastor Jamin of Impact Church. He was a mentor for me growing up. And so I would hear their voices in the midst of these challenges, and all along it was God just telling me, hey, just stay the course. So yes, by every circumstance that came through, the humility and just the grooming of God, man, really helped me just stay there, and then know how to be quiet when it wasn't time to speak, but then also speak when it was time to. So all of that, man, I just credit the Holy Spirit and walking with me along the way.
Would you, and I think I've heard you sort of speak a little bit on this on your own Facebook Live or something, and you see it talking about a God and the Word. And of course, with Prince, just I'm an outsider as a fan, listening to the songs and things that he's done. Obviously, that's a very big part of his whole thing. And you can see his journey and how he's learning different things and incorporating it. What kind of conversations did you guys have? Because I don't know if at that time when you were around, he was, a Jehovah's Witness still, or going to the Kingdom Hall and things of that nature. And I'm saying that from as a kid, that's, my parents were into, were JWs for a time. And I'm curious how that sort of, was there any, not to say conflict, that's not the word, but a difference in, I don't know, ideology or opinion versus more of a traditional sort of church background. I don't know if you were Baptist or Pentecostal or what have you, but did you guys ever have any conversations about, hey, yo, Josh, y'all need to come to the Kingdom Hall, or Prince, can you come to my church? Did you guys ever get into something like that?
Oh, yes. Yes. That was the foundation pretty much of our relationship. It kind of like when we weren't talking about music, we were either talking about Jesus, Africa, Egypt, or something like that. I mean, that was the general thread in our relationship. Family, all kind of stuff like that. It was more personal. And that's a big reason why we didn't talk or do anything for the last 4 years, because it just didn't feel right. And it was bigger than just trying to perform and be, for lack of better words, opportunistic because of our relationship. Not to say that everybody who has spoken out and have a true story with him can't, but I just felt like for us personally, it wasn't our time to really even talk about it. But in the beginning, like I said, the first day I met him was a 2-hour conversation about Jesus. And I did go to the Kingdom Hall with him a couple times because he invited us to go. But I think people who have followed Prince know this about him. He wasn't about the status quo. He was about discovery and learning about truth. He was about truth. And whatever that looked like, the closest thing to truth at the time to him was the Jehovah's Witness way. And obviously he was very close with Larry Graham, and shout outs to him as well. But I have to say, in conversation with Prince, he said this, and people were there. He said, man, I got to look into this Jesus character the way that Josh was talking about. I never heard of Jesus in this way. And so we would talk in depth about Jesus. And toward the end, the things that quote unquote Jehovah's Witness would say that you have to do, Prince definitely veered from and went away from. And he was more into the relationship aspect of Jesus Christ being his personal Lord and Savior as God. And so that's something that other people have even said. So it's not just me saying it, but other people have said, I did see a change in him veer away from Jehovah's Witness ways. And he was more so about Jesus, man, and just him being not just a prophet, but him actually being God in the flesh and being his redemptive Savior. Man, I get excited because I just remember those passionate conversations. But without a question, I believe that it didn't just start in conversation like that, but I think that was the culmination of our relationship and about Jesus Christ, Scripture, and the Word of God.
Wow. Would you guys actually, and again, I'm just asking questions, and I respect you guys' ability to not sort of tell everything, right? Like that's actually pretty dope. But the last thing I ask about that is, was it to the point where you guys would have like, a Bible study there in Paisley or wherever? Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes. Even the first day I quoted a scripture. I said, he was made to be sin who knew no sin. He said, look that up. Show me that. And he said in my Bible, and so, cause he had a JW Bible. And so I picked it up and I showed it to him. He was like, huh. So we talked about it all the time. It was, we would talk about scripture, and if we didn't necessarily pull out an actual Bible, we would have Bible discussion conversation themed. And so, all of that stuff. Like I said, he was a real brother who wanted to have passionate conversation. When I tell you passionate conversation, I'm talking about fist slapping hand, like I'm standing up, real in depth, not combative, but constructive, right? Real, like look it up, historical driven, truth driven conversation, and that is what made him. And here's the other thing. Woo, I get excited. The other thing, because let me tell you something. Everybody knows that they go through a Prince initiation and all that kind of stuff. I think, and I'm saying this from my relationship knowing him, but also just what we went through, he also wanted to put through the ringer the things that people believed in as well. Okay, you say that? Okay, let's see if you're going to stay true to those things. And so Hannah and I not only did we talk about it, but I believe us actually maintaining it is what I think made him actually veer, because he saw a truth in it, and it wasn't just words, because we were presented things. So he would tell me things. Let me tell you, I'm not making this stuff. So we had, when I say Prince brought around celebrity women, beautiful women, he said to me, and I said beautiful for a reason, because he said to me, these women that I bring around are shocked at you. And I said, why? He said, because when you're in the room, in the studio, he said, they kind of, test the waters with you a little bit, and you don't give them any time of day. He said, they say that you're different because you're young, you're producing for me, and you're married, but you're also true to her. They don't see that when they're alone with men in the studio. He told me that. Wow. And so I know, was watching in ways that most people don't think that he's watching. He was very, very observant. And I say he still is, because I like talking about him in the was and the is, because I believe he still is, just in a different location. And I look forward to seeing him again in heaven. But at the same time, on the earth, he was very observant and was very watchful. And he was very character driven. And so he would say all the time, people telling themselves, I don't have to let people go. They let themselves go.
I can feel that. I wish we got to see that that Prince that you just described, where, you know, getting into those conversations, because I understand he's got an image and different things, but you can kind of hear some of that in the music, and you can see it sometimes on stage. But to hear the way you just describe it, I wish we would have he would have felt comfortable. Like, yeah, show me them receipts. Oh, you talking about, you know what I mean? That's like, okay, that type of brother. I know you know what I mean? So, but that's beautiful, man. Like, wow. And the part of him just being able to sort of be observant and just kind of watch your get down, and let's see how you act when old girl walk in the room, or this person, you know what I'm saying? And being at his stature, that's got to be a big deal, because, you know, how do you trust people to be around you? How they gonna act in different things? Yeah, man. Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry, because he threw me right there. So go ahead, Big Sam.
Keeping on this theme of theology, Josh, did you guys, you and Prince, that is, and you and Hannah, did you guys ever get a chance to share your Bible study with Larry Graham, who I knew was a teacher, I'll use Prince's word, a teacher of Prince's in his journeys as a Jehovah's Witness? Because it sounds like, you know, you and Prince had these deep conversations where he would challenge you, whereas with Larry, he was more of a student. So did you get to see that change?
You know, to answer the first idea, I never got a chance, and I'm so open, but I've never gotten a chance to sit down with Larry in that capacity. But Larry and his wife, we love them so much. We jammed and laughed like brothers so many times that I just look forward to the next time we get a chance to do that. But as far as those conversations, no, we did not. But I'm so open to that. But on the flip side, as far as the challenge aspect to it, you know, I think it was not necessarily challenging me as much as it was combating some of the things that he had already thought. So it was like, instead of, hey, no, show me that, like challenge, it was more so like, wait a second, where's that at? I want to see that. It's kind of like he was that discovery thing. I think anybody, even on the outside, would see that characteristic about Prince, that he was about truth and he was going to discover it. He was even about just how he fought for artists and musicians. It was like, look, this is the way it's supposed to be. He was more so about finding what that truth is and then fighting for it. He did it in justice, and that's another part of the inspiration of continuing the legacy of Prince with the Purple Movement. He did it for musicians, but he also wanted to do it for his own life, and that's what we did as well. On the flip side, I was so blessed when I heard this. Morris, you mentioned Morris, and that's one of the most funniest real brothers you're going to meet. But Morris, he told me this on the set of Empire. One things that Hannah and I wanted to do, because I know Prince enjoyed Empire. He had a song that he let go on Empire, Funk and Roll, that I produced with him. And then the other aspect of it, Senna Omri, which is she was the director. I'm not sure if she's still doing that now, but she was directing Empire at the time, and so she was a Purple family. So Hannah and I said, okay, let's do this. And Phaedra also, she said, yo, you know, Prince would totally want you to do something like that, and that's the one thing we did over the last few years. But anyway, Morris told me on the set, he said, Prince told me something about you. I said, what is that? He said that you're him when he was younger. He sees himself in you. He said that he teaches you and you teach him.
Wow.
And that's what Morris told me afterwards. And I said, wow. You know, so I never said that to him, to Prince, and he never told me I was a teacher. If anything, I don't know if I think I may have said it one time, but he called me his son. At a time. And so, if anything,
wow.
That's for me is the relationship I saw. So I think that we learn from each other. And here's the thing. I hope even if you don't put this, I'm not even about you putting this out there, but if you do, for me, and I hope you understand, you know, brother to brother, for me, the whole Prince thing for me was not about music. For me, it was about those conversations about relationship. I'm very, very close with my dad still to this day. And there was no other man that I would ever deem as a father figure to me except for Prince.
Wow.
And so
That's heavy, man.
it's very heavy because I'm very close with my dad. Now, when I say Joe Jackson, I'm talking about, I wanted to make sure that my dad smiled because of what he put into me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt the same way about Prince. And it was that, Jesus, it was that I had a dream. It was check this out, the first time he even talked to me that way, my God, was in Anaheim, California. That afternoon, I had a dream, and he called me his son. And that very night, he called me his son in real life. It's bonkers how that stuff happened. But after he passed away, I even saw in some police records that Prince even spoke about me in that degree. I think Judith Hill said, Josh was like his son. And I never saw how he talked about me and other people that way. I just knew us personally, how I felt and what he said. But that's just the truth. And so for me, this whole, people were to think that we tried to quote unquote capitalize on his name, it's different. It's just so deeper than that. If we wanted to do something like that, we would have did it over this last 4 years, especially when he first came out. We would have been on every news media because we were approached by all these different people and we said no. So at this point, it's about bringing people together. It's about continuing the legacy of someone that Hannah and I truly love and miss. But it's not necessarily just centered around Prince as much as when you take the red, white, and the blue of the flag, it turns purple. And so it's just a wink and a continued aspect to what he had already believed in and what Hannah and I did on the front lines with him in Baltimore, and also in the production and music. We added some music things toward the song Baltimore. Hannah played the drums. I helped record. Aaron Allen Kane helped in the mixing process, as well as added some instrumentation. But we were doing things with him in continuation of something. So it's just so much deeper than this, what it quote unquote could look like or seem like. And so that's just how I feel, man.
No,
Sorry, I went on a little tangent.
Thank you for sharing that.
Emotional. Yeah.
But you're exactly right. It is always deeper, but it's a lot of times we don't get to have these types of conversations where they, get past sort of the surface sort of, oh, you worked for this person. So you expressing how you felt when you heard Prince talk to other people about you and the point of, the son and things. And I had wrote something down and you brought me back to it. So hearing you say that, and you see very, very strong relationship with your dad, and you say your dad was like a Joe Jackson. Now, to me, that means somebody who's going to make sure that their kids going to get what they need to get and get on beyond their pathway by almost any means necessary. Your feelings are in consideration, but I need you to have the opportunities. I got to make sure you get straight. And so that's not, so I see Joe Jackson as a good thing.
Yes.
Now, and then with Prince, and I didn't really get to ask you this, but just hearing how you talked about him, I would assume there are some parts of the working relationship with Prince. Well, again, Prince ain't playing no games. Enough people that I've interviewed, when it's time to do the work, it's about that work. Like, we're going to get this right, whoop-de-woo. So going along that pathway, I want to ask you, and you're a father. You have 3 children, they're relatively young still, but have you seen yourself sort of carry these disciplines or work ethics towards your kids? And I know how I feel about my kids. I can just think about them and start, it breaks me. Yeah. Being that your dad is here, Prince is no longer here physically with us. How does that affect your relationship with your kids? Like, you know what I mean? Like, just as a dad yourself. Yeah.
I feel like I literally was just thinking about this a couple of days ago, talking to Hannah about this, between my father, Prince, like I said, one of my mentors growing up, Pastor Jamin, this other brother named Ray Moffitt. He was, or still, is the director of this performing arts troupe called Moi, Messages Which Are Hopeful. And I feel like I've been a culmination of these different men in my life. And I've pulled from each one of them something that has kind of made me. Mm. And I was thinking about it because my wife, she was talking about how sovereign my son has me when I didn't necessarily have a me, but he being the culmination of me and the other people that I just mentioned. As well as my mother. And so my son and my daughters are going to get the culmination of these different men and women in my life who have basically cultivated who I am. Mm. Now, when I say that, these are my, earthly examples, but, God has for sure. When I say put me through the ringer of character and humility in ways that obviously man can't orchestrate, because there's things that happen in front of the scenes and behind the scenes that not those any of those mentors can strategically play a part in. But God has been very specific in building my character. So between all of these different people that I mentioned, between my mother, my father, Prince, Pastor Jamin, Ray Moffitt, and just literally helped me become who I am. Man, it's a strong, and other counselors and mentors that I have, Pastor Ed Doppel, things of that nature. I'm telling you, these people play a huge part in how I raise my children and how even the filter of the lens and how they see the world they play a big part in who I am today.
Wow. And that brings us to two things. It brings us to You Will Be Moved Ministries, but also to the Purple Movement. And yes. I want to jump to the Purple Movement for a second. And I'm gonna say this based off of something you said. Again, shout out to your brother in his podcast as I watched that.
Yeah.
But you talked about, you said, hey, I am married. I'm a black man. And you said, I'm married to a white woman. Yes. I have both races in my family. My kids are from both of us.
Yes.
And that's a unique experience. A lot of people do have, but some people don't. And in terms of where we're at today in the discussion of what's going around the country, I'm curious, how do you see yourself in terms of the Purple Movement? How does that sort of, because you have to, you can't just be like, oh, black people and that's it. No, we got to be in this together, right? Because your family is everything, is all of
right.
this.
Right.
I don't know if it matters, but I'm just throwing these questions out to you. I don't know if like my kids are black kids, or are they going to be viewed as differently to the world? But however they are viewed to the world, it sounds like you're trying to make sure that the world views them as people, you know what I mean? Regardless of their skin color.
Right.
So with all of that said, I'm sort of running the Purple Movement. Take us into that. Like why is it called Purple?
Yes.
And everything. Go ahead.
So thank you very much. And I see that you definitely on that movement aspect, because it's, I know you said a couple times, Your Will Be Move Ministries, but it's Your Will Be Done Ministries. Just like Your Kingdom Come, Your Will Be Done. So Your Will Be Done Ministries. But I like that you put that move on it, because we keep it moving, baby.
Yes, sir.
But yes, indeed. But so just to keep it moving, yes, Your Will Be Done Ministries, and then obviously the Purple Movement. The reason why it's called Purple, man, I was sitting down watching a Democratic and Republican debate, and they were arguing, and I mentioned my mother playing a big part of who I am, and I just naturally started to think like my mom thinks. When you see two people arguing, she naturally plays the advocate. I don't like saying devil's advocate, but she's that advocate where she's saying, okay, I see your side. I see your side. How can we come together? So that's what I started to think. And obviously the God in me too was thinking, how can we come together? So I go, okay, what are some things? And it just dawned on me. And I like to say the Holy Spirit just brought me this idea of the flag. We got one flag in this nation. So I thought to myself, what would happen if we took the red, the white, and blue, and we merge it together. And it just so happened to be purple. And when that happened 2 years ago, I had this idea came to me. I even made a faux website called The Purple Movement. It was politically driven and based and figuring out ways we can connect local government and all that kind of stuff. And over the last couple of years, it evolved. And because of the George Floyd incident, I was talking to one of my brothers, Corey Tollefson, and I went down to 38th in Chicago where George Floyd's life was taken. And I stood out there. And because I'm a minister and it's just at the root of me, I wanted to speak out what I believed at the guts of who I am. And I just proclaimed Jesus out there, and people were shouting Jesus and was just handing out waters and willing to pray for anybody who was there. And people responded, and it was such a peaceful time there. And since then, we've seen so many beautiful things happen, from prayer to baptisms happening and all kind of things. But we also seen riots and looting and all types of things. And it's just been, in some degree, a war zone of war and love. But at the end of the day, I came back home and I said, okay, I went out there and I just got on my knees and said, God, we have to do more. You know, there's people out there who don't believe in Jesus. And Jesus, when you came, you for God so loved the world. It wasn't like people you didn't just love a select people. You said you love the world. And so I just thought to myself, we have to do more. I have to present something more. And I was talking to Corey about this same conversation. I said, but we have to call it something. And I had already told him about the Purple Movement in prior conversation. And it came to me. I said, wait a minute. It's the Purple Movement. This is the time for the Purple Movement to come out. And so I went back to the faux website and I started to look at it and I said, this is it. We have to do it. It's the Purple Movement. It's in Minneapolis. It's perfect. Like, we have to do this. And I started to revamp some of the ideas and redo the website. And because, like I said, you take the red, white, and blue, you put it together and it's purple. It was so perfect. We had just moved to Minneapolis in January, right before all this COVID things hit. And obviously right before the George Floyd thing hit. And we were out here, literally here for such a time as this, for the Purple Movement to be launched here in Minneapolis. I'm telling you, everything was divine and how it aligned. And so I just didn't want to go down there and pray, because I knew that maybe some Buddhists, maybe some Muslims would just not hear me, period. But they would hear the principles that I was talking about, talking about love, reconciliation, coming together. And that's exactly what the Purple Movement is about, and bringing people together. Because despite if you believe in Jesus like I do, you do believe in love, you do believe in reconciling, you do believe in breaking the divide and coming together and building a bridge where there once were walls, because we have children in the future that we have to make this world a place of peace. Because I want to know and be ensured that when I leave this earth, I made it a better place, not just for my children, but for my children's children. I feel responsible for generations to come to actually present something, whether it be policies, whether it be truths, whether it be principles, that people can say, yes, I can get behind that for the betterment of our nation, and ultimately the hashtag map the globe.
Wow. See,
man, I get excited, man.
I'm saying, because you get into your preacher, and I'm like, man, my brother, he's going in. I love it, man. We need that energy and just eloquently speaking that. Break us down the 3 policies of the Purple One, because this is important. Like, because again, like you said, we can get out there and get the shout and stuff, but to actually got to break it down to like, no, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're asking for. So can you start with the first one?
Thank you so much. So yes, we have 3 policies. The first one is called police conduct. And we make sure that body cams are not recommended, but they are on at all times, on every law enforcement officer at all times. We also talk about that if any unarmed individual is either brutally beaten and or killed, that the police officer or officers must be arrested immediately, because we want to ensure that life is taken seriously by the law enforcement, and also the citizens know that law enforcement and the government say, hey, we value life. We want to make sure that life is valued. So we didn't want it just to be where it was beneficial for the civilian, but also for the police officer. And any police officer who says, no, we don't want to do that, you can kind of see if there's going to be some type of foul play potentially, because I believe in my heart that if I was a police officer, and I have talking to police officers, that they say, you know what? there shouldn't be any reason why somebody that is unarmed should be brutally beaten and or killed with a cop who should be trained on de-escalation tactics.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another part about it. And then we also talk about this grace period because we saw what happened. Minneapolis charged the officer within 4 days. So we said, okay, we want to say a 7 to 10 day grace period that the public knows that the police officer or officers will at least be charged within a 7 to 10 day grace period, so that people aren't just waiting weeks or months for either the freedom of the police officer or officer's name and or the family members or the person who was either brutally beaten or killed at the time. And last but not least, we want the probable cause hearing to be public because we want transparency. So what we're basically wanting to do is make sure that police officers are tried as human beings when someone is brutally beaten, unarmed, and or tried not on the street, but in the court as they should, according to our Constitution. And so we want to make sure that the police officer, as well as the victim, is tried in court, not on the streets, as human beings, and we don't have to go through the red tape and trying a police officer. So that's just a general breakdown. And we have 3 different videos under 4 minutes on the front page, as well as the purplemovement.org /policy to give you some more law driven ideas that back our policies as well. The second one, and I'm just going to do a brief synopsis, is about the great conversation. I get super excited about this one because it empowers the voice of the community. It gives this non-governmental body, CEA, we call them a community elected advocates, where they have subpoena powers, body cam review things, and we have all this breakdown online as well. And basically what it is saying, hey, we want to have a continual conversation because so many times you see activists and advocates come out in the midst of tragedies yelling, not even sure if the people of their local government are hearing what they're saying, but the power of the people finally come together in these times. But we don't want to just do it during tragedy. The Purple Movement is also a preventative movement. We want to keep the conversation going on a monthly basis. And so that is what the CEA is about. And we break that down as well. Last but not least is the third one, the racial ratio. And what we're doing is saying that the community that the police officers serve needs to reflect what is in the police officer precinct. And so we have this idea that is pretty different. We've had laws that have enforced separatism, but we want a law that enforces diversity. And so we talked about this thing being enforcing this idea called the transfers. So if you have, let's say, a hub like Georgia, where you have a predominantly Black population, we want to make sure that we have a reflective representation within the police force. And so if we don't have that, and you have a predominantly white precinct when you have a predominantly Black population, what we want to do is start transferring officers throughout the country. And just like we do when we need people to help out on the front lines of the Army, our beloved armed forces in the Army. We want to do the same thing. We basically need some racial healing in our country. And so we want to make sure that we're not having a white dominated area or a Black dominated area. We want to make sure that it actually is balanced within the ratio of the community and the police force, as well as police community service, where we want to enforce and build a policy that police aren't just quote unquote policing. They're going out into the community, but we want to make that as a part of legislation as well. So those are just the breakdowns of the 3. We've been getting some amazing feedback, and the way we present it on the front page, we have 3 different policies as well as 3 different petitions to sign for people to check it out and to learn more about.
Man, beautiful. And I was curious, you answered it earlier, but I was curious, like, man, how did he get the website and everything popping so quickly? But obviously you had this already sort of going on before you sort of decided, oh, okay, now is a perfect opportunity to launch this out. So you had already been sort of working on some of these aspects. Now, these policies here, I think are great. They obviously are great conversation starters, and the fact that you have plans of action to sign the petitions and actually make things happen. And then you're also, I'm sorry, was it ambassador program?
Oh, yes. So, man, let me tell you, we have over 100 ambassadors that have already signed up. and that's national and global. Each ambassador receives 100 flyers, door hangers, Purple Movement bracelets. We have Purple Movement stickers. We do face masks. We've sent out gloves, and just other types of personalized things within the Purple package. And so we've sent out thousands of flyers already, and we just had to reorder 12,500 flyers because people are continuously, last time I checked, we had over 100. I don't know where it's at now. I just did that a couple days ago, but we're continuously growing. And so that's 100 each. So that's 10,000 different flyers that have gone out globally for people to pass out in their respective communities. And so if you go to thepurplemovement.org/ambassador, there is an ambassador application where you can fill out, and we will send you a purple package so you can help us on the field. This is a grassroots movement. We're literally starting from the bottom now. We hear kind of movement, and we're getting, and anybody who wants to help and spread the news in their respective communities can tangibly help this movement be more effective in their respective places. And so that's super exciting for me. We also have an ambassador program for people who are online. So if you go to thepurplemovement.org/online, we have pictures, virtual flyers that you can spread, as well as a 7-day awareness challenge where you can put the Purple Movement flyer in your profile pictures, talk about it, post purple pictures, and all that kind of stuff to help spread some online awareness as well.
Wow. Man, you are actually, this a real movement. Like, you really are sort of stepping out in front and, really kind of pushing this thing heavy, which I think is great, man. I mean, let me ask you this, are you ready for the smoke, as they like to say? Because obviously there's going to be a lot of love that's going to come your way off of this and support. But of course, like anything in life, there's going to be some sort of pushback. Hopefully it's nothing. But I'm asking that because I know you're a family man and you got everything to live for, right?
Brother, well, let me tell you something. There's a saying they say, when you bring the heat. So we're bringing the heat, so we're expecting the smoke.
Okay.
So it's a part of what we're doing, and the only heat that we're bringing is the power of love, the power of unity and reconciliation. If people got an issue with that, they, like Prince would say, they telling on themselves. And for me, we're not just wanting to present policy. We want to collaborate on the policies that the Purple Movement presents.
Okay.
So we're also building a platform for people to, which we're going to be announcing soon, a platform for people to sign up and be a member of. It's kind of like the social media platform for policy creation and communication. We don't want to just present policies. We want to collaborate with people like yourself who are passionate about change and justice to share your ideas, and so that we can put your policy and credit you and present it with the Purple Movement, with email campaigns and so forth. So this is not just about the 3 policies we present. We want to also keep this thing going, not just nationally, but globally. We want to support whatever policies you guys feel in your heart and collaborate with you guys, with a fellow Purple Movement people who believe in consistent change. So if you don't agree with the 3 policies, it doesn't mean that you won't have room for us to back you and the policies that you have. So we don't want to just be the bridge for the government and to the people, but we also want to be a bridge within ourselves, because within our logo, there is a purple bridge, because it's about coming together. So this is not just like, hey, we have this movement, support our policies. No, we want us to hear your policy ideas, hash it out with the public as well. And then we also want to present your policies and credit the people. And then just like we did those videos and put it on the front page, we want to do that same thing with people as well. So for people to have an issue with this, it's kind of like we've kind of eliminated all of this stuff for people to have issues with it. But if people do, hey, like we said, we just keep it moving anyway. It's called the Purple Movement. We got to keep it moving.
I love it. I love that attitude. And lastly, I would say, man, this is beautiful. To the part that moves me is, just like I said at the beginning, sort of your whole package of it, that you're married, you and your wife, you're always seen together, united. I know you have children, you have your ministry. That to me is like the first step. It's like, okay, if this brother, and again, that's saying everything that you've done already in such a short amount of time. You had the previous group you were with, the Prince stuff, and all of that. And I'm like, this is the direction he decides to go into. Cause like, again, a lot of us can, I can't never do nothing but be in music, or I got to, be singing and dancing. But I'm like, no, he actually getting into some real life type stuff, because we all want to be with somebody, whoever that is. We may have a family. How do we operate when we have all of these things, but we still want to get out here and do something? So to me, I'm just saying, for me, the most powerful part of you is you, like just your whole package and your integrity about it. Wow. So that's why I really was like, of course, we got to have him on the podcast. And I'm glad we had this conversation, man, because really sort of opened my eyes. And it's inspiring. I'm inspired listening to you.
Thank you.
So salute to you and your wife and your family. Before we get out of here, Big Sexy, I don't know if you have any other questions, and also, Joshua, is there anything else that you would like to share with us as well?
Okay, go ahead, Big Sexy. Go ahead, brother. Have you had anything?
Actually, yeah, I do have one question. This is more of a technical question.
Yes.
Being that you're considerably younger than me, and I'm drinking the haterade as we speak about this, how did you get to learn how to maneuver and create in a production/studio environment?
It came out of necessity. Growing up, I was pursuing a solo career, and it was so funny because Troy Taylor, who was the executive producer of a lot of Trey Songz music, and basically helped launch his career in the beginning. He helped me in the beginning, and I heard Brasco, people out of Chicago, All Bangers, different people from back in the day, Lenny Hooks, they were helping and producing tracks for me. But what happened was when I was 16 years old, I started getting extremely opinionated about the tracks that were being sent to me. And I just said, can you put this here? Can you do this there? Can you do this? Can you up the kick here? And I just was so opinionated. I started to get on people's nerves to the point where folks was like, why don't you just do it? And so out of necessity, I just jumped in and opened up Logic Pro and never looked back. And I actually, when I was younger, was doing producing on Acid Pro, I think it was called. And I didn't have a MIDI keyboard. I would take a sample, if anybody understands, I'd take a waveform, and I didn't understand grids. And so I would literally cut out the kick drum in the waveform and then place every single kick where I wanted to place. Same thing with the clap. I didn't press it with the keyboard. So I literally was cut and pasting with the mouse just by feel. So if it was a drum track, like I would literally have to paste every single thing you just heard one by one, hi-hat, kick. And so I started really analytically and super specific, and that's how I started. It was out of necessity. I wanted to hear what I heard in my head versus try to tell somebody else and to do what I heard in my head. So it came out of necessity, and by the grace of God, man, that thing caught on.
Wow. Now you got kind of opened my mind to something I wanted to ask. And hopefully we're not taking too much of your time, but no, I
really enjoyed this conversation, man. I just really like how you guys have presented things. And I know you'll probably edit things out or whatever you want to do, but I just appreciate it.
Oh, no, we're the home of keeping it raw. So we're not going to be editing. We'll cut maybe the spaces in between the words. But no, we're going to leave it in. Just going back to the production thing, and I was curious about this then. How did... And maybe I'm speaking my own fears, but I would be so intimidated if I was in the studio with Prince. But what was the production process like? And I don't know how it differed between how Prince constructed records or made his tracks versus how you may have done yours. I know you mentioned Logic, so I understand it's a digital process, and I know how that works. But were there ever times when he was like, "Yo, here go this guitar part, this and that, add your stuff to it," and how would you do that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So a couple things. So sometimes it would go it happened multiple different ways. So there were times he gave me an acapella and said, "Hey, do your thing," and then most of the time he would tell me what he was looking for, and I would then go create it. Other times he would even create something and he would say, put your stank on it. So for a good song, a good example of that is like something like The Gold Standard on AOA. He produced his own version with the Lindrum and some of his stuff guitar wise. And then he said, put your spin on it. And so that's where the 808s and the intro and things began to change, added claps here and there, and just put some auxiliary things and kind of formed it out. Other songs, kind of like Way Back Home, Funk and Roll in the beginning, except for the very end part, we did a lot of collaboration on. But he would just say, "Hey, do you. Have fun, fall in love tonight, go do your thing," and just make a track. And then sometimes he would just literally go and record his voice on it and didn't add any instrumentation. So like Breakfast Can Wait, the remix, he sat in the studio and he plugged in straight to the interface and recorded the guitar solo on it. You know what I'm saying? Wow. He did one take on that. So it was a really, really organic thing. And so between him giving me acapellas, him just telling me to make tracks, and then he could record his voice, him adding guitar later, him and I also producing together in the same track in the same room. One of the tracks that I had so much fun doing with him was Single Most Amazing Thing in the Room for Rita Ora. I'm not sure if it ever got released, but I know it was an underground release or something like that. But him and I were up till 5, 6 in the morning, just him and I just having so much fun. He adds something and I'd be like, ooh, I got an idea. And I just pull up a VST and I'd add that. He'd be like, ooh, give me the guitar. And he'd plug his guitar. And so it was back and forth.
Awesome.
So it was extremely organic. But you mentioned also being intimidated. But there was that feeling. But because, like I said, it was 9 months of a relationship prior to, it didn't feel that way initially as much as I put the pressure on myself. He didn't make me feel that way. But there were times when I felt like I was getting Prince and I just had to just, keep it focused and keep it moving. But he told my parents, he said, I never had an engineer who could hang with me the way he does. And so because of the Joe Jackson, I kind of had the tough skin to be able to hang and so forth. I give credit to God as well as my parents for raising me and keeping it 100 with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
What you say you told your parents? Your parents came?
Yeah, a couple times they met Prince. First time was in Las Vegas. Second time they came to Paisley Park, and at certain events we would do. And yeah, he met them, and a few of I think he met all of my brothers. Yep, he met all of my brothers as well.
Okay.
So yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow, I know.
I take that back. He kind of met my big brother Adam, the one you saw.
Yeah.
My big brother Adam, he was in super duper fan mode. And it was so hilarious. He in Anaheim, I think it was. Because I had the whole bracelet thing, I let him go in front of the barricade, but he was front center in the middle.
Oh,
and so he went in super fan mode. And so he kind of met my big brother, Adam. He reached out. My brother took a guitar pick, touched his shoe, touched his guitar. He was, when I say super fan mode, he crossed over. So yeah, he showed out. So my brother, I would say that's how he met Prince. And so because of that, how do I say this? It sounds so respectful because I love my brother. He didn't necessarily go backstage that day, but he definitely met him. He met him in front. And so I told Prince and I said, hey, so you know that guy in the front? He said, yep. And I said, that was my brother. He said, figures. Because we look alike. But just because of that moment, that's how Adam met Prince. But the rest of my family met him a different way at Paisley Park. But my brother, man, he's so awesome, man. I love him.
Wow, that's cool, man. That's again, those are things I love to hear because it's easy not to humanize Prince if you never necessarily, you know what I mean? And so to hear these interactions is really cool. And I think, and again, I don't want to take away from anything that you've said on your stuff, but I know you told a story. It was a cool story about just Prince's excitement, anticipation for your child before your child was born and different things. Yes. And when I heard you talk about that, I was just like, oh man, wow. Like,
yeah.
Incredible. So yeah, man, Good stuff.
So I just wanted to, like you mentioned earlier, if I just wanted to say anything else, I want to just thank everyone, including yourselves, who have just taken the time out to hear our story, as well as take the time to listen. There are so many different things that are pulling for our attention in the world. For someone to say, hey, I want to sit down and listen to what Joshua and Hannah are talking about, it just blesses our hearts. And I also want to just shout out my wife and just tell you, when you listen back to this, I love you, sweetheart. Thank you for everything you do in front and behind the scenes. Thank you for supporting me and our children. It's such a pleasure raising our children together. Lastly, as far as the Purple Movement, second to last, I want to thank everyone a part of Your Will Be Done Ministries. You know I love you guys, and I look forward to every time we come together. As far as the Purple Movement goes, whether you believe in Jesus or not, whether you're Muslim, Buddhist, Black, white, brown, this is about us coming together as people for a better future. Let's truly have conversation. Let's learn from one another. Let's grow with each other, and let's make a better world for our future. Whether you're a Prince fan or not, understand the principles behind what we're talking about. This is not about one person. This is about all of us coming together. And the idea behind purple is about unity and reconciliation. We have a purple acronym, and it's being proactive. It's about unity. It's about reconciliation. It's about probity. Probity means strict honesty and integrity. It's also about love and equality. That's our purple acronym that we use when we create policy. Let's think about those things, despite what you may think or what it may seem like. Let's go a bit deeper, and let's really make change together. I truly believe, and I have the utmost conviction in my heart, and I am fully persuaded that hope is on the horizon, and together we can really make real change if we take the time to ask questions, be patient, and just be considerate to one another, to be quick to hear and slow to speak. And let's build on something for real that can really make change for the future. So I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I truly love everyone who decides to say yes. And I also love everyone who decides to say no, because that's what it's truly about. Not loving when it's easy, but pushing forward and really making some purple change. So thank you very much for this time. And I really enjoyed this interview.
Hey, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Woo. And let me say, brother, we got to hear you making it hard for us men out here. We better be up on our love for our women. Because you make sure to shout your wife out. You said, I love you before and after. Oh, man. And I seen you did it was her birthday or something. You was like, I'm going to do a video card. I was like, this? I was like, you need to come out with the book called Mac Ministries or something. I was like, this. Josh would be on it. I love it.
Oh, man,
but listen,
God.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Definitely go and check out the website. Make sure I got that in front of me. The purplemovement.org.
Yes.
And go in there and check out everything here. Big Sexy, sir, thank you again. Salute to you.
Yes.
Joshua, thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, you already know what I'm going to say. Work it like a job. We'll see you next time.